It's a big week in the world of Arsenal as we get closer to that brilliant clash at the Etihad Stadium between Arsenal and Manchester City. And we're going to talk all about it in a dedicated 45 minutes or so to that game, of which we are definitely not scared of in any way, shape, or form. This is the Let's Talk Arsenal show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is our Let's Talk Arsenal series, where I'm joined by a group of collective, fantastic, wonderful, weird guests. Sometimes they're weird. They are in the case of Umar. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel? Good to see you.
Yeah, long time, TC. Thanks for having me on. It has been quite a while, to be fair. But
I think the last
yeah,
time we streamed together was when you were still with us at the Arsenal way. I think that must be the last
yeah,
time.
probably. The months fly by, honestly. It's
Let the
crazy.
people know what you've been up to, man. What's been happening
Yeah,
since you decided to jump ship? You know, definitely wasn't forced to in any way because of
exactly.
what was it? How many people had to leave in the end? 450 or something crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
But no,
mad.
like I said to you, once like you leave, a new door opens. So right now I'm working for TNT Sports and Eurosport. So I'm in charge of their YouTube channels across the board. So if you see any highlights, Arsenal related, I'm your man, to be fair.
It's this man. So basically, do you remember when your current employer put together that horrific compilation of Arsenal getting battered by Liverpool? Are you now the man that's in charge of balancing that out for the
To be fair,
future?
yeah, a lot of people, a lot of people in the comments are saying, "Surely this guy's an Arsenal fan." Like, what is this? And I'm like, no, there's no bias in this, but no, I'm enjoying it.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear it, mate. I'm really, really glad because, yeah, you're very missed indeed with us, and it's glad to see that you've gone on to really good things. And we're also joined by Laura, who, whenever I introduce Laura, I get a fear that I'm going to say her surname the wrong way around, just like I did on our live show. I didn't say anything, but when I watched it back, I was like, hold on. I said it the complete wrong way around. Did you notice that I did that?
No, did you really? I didn't notice it. So
Absolutely messed it up. You good?
I'm good. You can. I mean, I've changed my name in all of the important things, which is social media and nothing else, because I can't be bothered with the admin. So
Really?
for the sake of this, yeah, I'm Laura Kirk, and we can't be dealing with the double barrel, basically.
Fair enough. Yeah, Georgia changed hers like because she's so meticulous, like with everything. It's like one day after you don't even let it settled yet. Like we haven't even got through the honeymoon period, literally, and she's like changing names on every document possible. So yeah, no, I absolutely respect the anti-hustle, if you like, of that. So yeah, good stuff though. And of course, we're here to talk about the big game this weekend. Got a lot of stuff going on this week, so I thought I'd kind of bring forward the preview as such. We'll probably still do a preview this week, but more of an in-depth chat about things. But Umar, is this the most confident you've been going into this fixture?
To be fair, TC, you know me. I'm always confident. I'm always confident, but no, I think compared to recent years, I think we have to go into this game. We have to be confident. I think Arsenal right now, they're playing the best football they have for a long, long time. Defensively, I think throughout the season, they've been top. And it was always a worry that we weren't scoring enough goals, but that seems to have changed following our trip to Dubai. So I think we have to go there, and obviously we have to respect Manchester City because they've done some fantastic things over the last year or so. But we're playing some fantastic football right now. We've got self-belief, we've got confidence, we're scoring goals left, right, and centre. And why can't we go to Manchester City and get a good result? And I'll go back to last season, and I was thinking about this earlier on. When we played Manchester City in both our games last season at home and away, when we went into those games, we were in poor form. If we're being serious, you go back to that away game at the Etihad. We I think drew 3 games: Southampton, Liverpool, West Ham. So we weren't in the best of form. You go back to that home game last season. Obviously, when we lost 3-1, we drew against Brentford. We lost to Manchester City in the cup. We lost to Everton at Goodison Park. So again, it was a patchy bit of form. This season, we're flying. Like we're picking up wins, but we're playing in a manner where nothing really phases us. The only time I think I feel worried that Arsenal are going to concede a goal lately is because if they make a mistake of their own accord. Like right now, Arsenal look very, very good. And I think it's always been a mentality thing with this side. And I always wanted Arsenal, following last season's heartache, the upset, the anguish. I wanted us to go again this season. And I never expected that, okay, we failed last season. This season is going to be the year that we win the league. No, not at all. Obviously, we're up against a fantastic team. Liverpool have had a great season so far. It's always going to be tough. But what I wanted this season was, with 10 games left of the Premier League campaign, for us to be in there and thereabouts. And we are. Now, let's see how we basically overcome the hurdles of last season. And let's see if we can overcome that this season. So I'm excited for it. I think we can go there, touch wood, with a fully fit squad. I know there's a few doubts, but we can go there and we can get a good result, because you've seen in the Community Shield, we stopped Manchester City. You go back to that game at home at the Emirates, there's not much between these two sides. So why can't we go there and pick up a good result? Because we've gone to Liverpool, picked up a good result, beaten them at home. We've beaten Manchester City at home. Why can't we make it full?
Yeah, no, I think you speak well on it, and I think that there is a confidence growing in the team and the fan base, as you're demonstrating, of course, leading up to this fixture. I will talk about kind of some of maybe the mitigating circumstances in terms of individuals, and still we're waiting on kind of updates on certain injuries to record this on Tuesday. But sticking with the optimism at the moment, Laura, and kind of the momentum that we built, we've won every league game in 2024, which includes obviously that big win over Liverpool as well. Do you feel like that game in particular has given them the belief, and obviously the win against Man City, as Umar pointed out earlier in the season, those two wins against your title rivals, does that make a clear difference when you go into these types of games?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think the momentum that we've got from battering, the sides that we've played this year, it does feel a bit different from last year. I agree. I think when we went to the Etihad last year, there was a little bit of confidence, but I think most people were thinking we're going to get battered here, and we did. So I think we have shown this season that we can not only go toe to toe with these teams, but we can win. I wish I could say I was confident. I really do. I'm confident that we will go and we will be competitive. I'll hold my hands up and say I am generally quite a pessimistic fan, as a sort of form of self-protection.
Right.
I'm confident that we will go and compete. I think I'm a little bit nervous based on who we have played recently. So obviously we've talked about the Liverpool game. That was a while ago. The first half decent team we played recently was Porto. And obviously they're set up very differently from Man City. It's a different beast, but we have basically rolled over teams continuously, with the exception of Brentford, but it was obviously quite the score lines doesn't reflect how dominant we are. It will be different on Sunday, and so this will be a different type of test that we've had recently. So for me, that's a potential mitigating factor, but we can be confident. I think we can be confident. We don't need to be arrogant. I have nightmares of Kevin De Bruyne just waltzing his way through our midfield, and he scored so many goals against us. I don't know if he's injured or not. So we should go with the confidence that we have beaten both Liverpool and Man City this season, and that's all we can really do. And essentially, it does feel different from last year, because I think we lost our heads dreaming of the title, whereas this year I think we have been ruthless, we've been clinical, and so we should go with some confidence. I'm just unfortunately Mrs. Pessimistic, and I'm preparing myself for heartbreak, basically.
Yeah, I don't blame people like yourself for going in that way. Expect disappointment and you'll never be disappointed. But
yet I still will be on Sunday. If we don't win, I will still be disappointed.
Of course. Also, I just realised, looking at the camera, that I wore the worst T-shirt to talk about with this show today. I just clocked it. I was like, that terrible day to put on a light blue T-shirt. But I think those other mitigating circumstances come down to kind of the individuals. Last season, Umar, we missed William Saliba in this game. He got injured, obviously, in that game against Sporting. And all the agenda at that point was, did Arteta make a mistake by using such a key player in the game in a tournament where, it was a bit of a bonus tournament with the Premier League race on at that time? This time and this period, we seem to be getting players back, at the right time. We've had Partey come back, Tomiyasu's come back, Gabriel Jesus has returned to fitness, is in the squad. Zinchenko has returned and is available for selection as well. We've got depth in different positions. There are some question marks about a few players, which we'll talk about in a bit, but Saliba in particular, and I think it's his first time playing at the Etihad Stadium, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't think, did he play in the FA Cup game that we lost 1-0? I'm trying to think. He might have done.
I think he did, yeah.
But we still played a pretty rotated team, whereas they went quite strong in that FA Cup game, if I remember rightly. But yeah, the FA Cup fourth round last season. It was Gabriel and Holding still. Saliba came on in the second half. We subbed him in. I do remember there being a bit of uproar about why we rotated Saliba around for that game. But we could, based upon his availability, which of course he's expected to start tonight for France, so fingers crossed he gets through, touch wood. How big of a presence will having him this time, and not only him, of course, but the other introductees are Declan Rice, Kai Havertz, and David Raya as well.
It's massive. It's massive. Like, I can't underestimate how big it is, because you go back to, again, last season in the big games, I think we lacked a bit of, I don't know what the right word is, but the pressure got to us. I think it got to a lot of players when we came to the last 10 games, 5 games. And I think this season, we've got men in our team, physically imposing men, that they don't mind doing the nitty and gritty in this game. They can play the sexy, attractive football and score a lot of goals. But if you want to go into a dogfight, this Arsenal team can do it. And you look at our defence being the perfect example. Defensively, I don't think there's any team better than us in the world right now. And I think a lot of that is down to the structure of our team. Obviously, having Declan Rice in front. I know he's been playing a number of positions, the number 8 and as the 6. But I think defensively, we look so solid. And I've said before, the only time I think Arsenal will concede a goal is if they make a mistake out of their own accord. Exactly. And you've seen it in the past few weeks. We look calm. Even against Porto in the Champions League, there was never a time where I thought Porto are going to score. I was always worried, can Arsenal get one? Can they get another? But I think defensively, we've got options now. And we've got stability in our defence. Obviously, Gabriel, I think he's been fantastic. In my opinion, I think he's been better than Saliba this season. I think and it's crazy to think, because last season it was all William Saliba, what a defender, but also Jakub Kiwior. I think he's going under the radar because he's been fantastic. And it shows Mikel Arteta one thing. When you have a player like that, don't ask him to be inverted. Don't ask him to do things that he's not comfortable in doing, because you saw when he was doing that inverted role, he's not used to it.
It was poor.
Exactly. He's not used to it. Make him play the way that he's used to, that he'll be comfortable in, and you'll reap the rewards. Because I think I look at Kiwior right now, and he's been brilliant. I think against Porto, he was out of this world. It was a brilliant defensive performance. And now you've got Tomiyasu coming back. I think Mikel Arteta, he relies upon Tomiyasu a lot, especially in the big games. Go back to last season at home against Manchester City. Tomiyasu started that game. I know he made that mistake, but when Arteta needs a man in the big games, in the big moments, more often than not, he picks Tomiyasu. He played against Mohamed Salah last season. But I think this season, the back line, you don't change it. You do not change it. Raya's been fantastic as well. And you go back to when we beat them at the Emirates. First 30 minutes were shaky from David Raya. Second half, he was out of this world. He was allowing basically what Ederson does for Manchester City. And I think when you have a goalkeeper like that, it helps you a lot. So, yeah, William Saliba and Gabriel, they've been fantastic. And it makes a big difference. Like, no disrespect to Rob Holding, but it makes a big difference when you go to the Etihad and you're up against Kevin De Bruyne, Haaland, Bernardo Silva, and you've got Saliba and Gabriel instead of like Holding or Gabriel.
For sure. Just a couple of points that you made on Kivior there. I see in the chat box, Goongang says Kieran Tierney is listening and is furious. Archangel says he didn't have the same perspective with Tierney. I think that there's a reason as to why. Like, Tierney was a left back. Kivior isn't. Kivior is a left-sided centre half. Kieran Tierney is a player that is comfortable on the ball, moves the ball forwards very well. You know, his passing's good. And I think there was an expectation from Arteta that perhaps he would have the technical ability to play that inverted role if he was going to try and switch things up. Whereas Kivior, he's recognised immediately that I think there's more traits in Kivior that identified him as really not being comfortable in that style as more of a centre half than any other position. And that's why he's made the decision to go from the right-hand side to invert with Ben White instead. Whereas I think maybe with Tierney, he kept on trying with it because he actually had faith that Tierney might eventually be able to adapt to it. But in the end, he clearly couldn't. Laura, we touched upon Saliba there with Umar. There is question marks about Gabriel Magalhaes's potential availability for this game. Obviously, he's pulled out of the Brazilian squad. As far as I'm aware, it's precautionary, but still there's always going to be some kind of race against time to get fit and to be fully available. In either world where he is or isn't, and I'm assuming as the pessimist you're going to assume that he's out for the rest of the season. But how big of a miss would that be? And if he was, how would you go about trying to create a back four with the players we have available to make do?
I've just had a sort of like little nervous breakdown as you reminded me of that. I had just visions of Rob Holding on Haaland last year, and also Rob Holding on when he got sent off versus Son a couple of seasons ago. That would be a big problem. I think it would, just for the security and the kind of confidence that it gives the team, it would be a big miss. I don't know whether we just chuck Ben White in there and be like, good luck, and then sort of work it out that way. I'm having visions of it right now, and it's just making me so uncomfortable going to the Etihad.
Tomiyasu come into it some way? Because I think of his versatility.
When was the last time Tomiyasu played?
We played that friendly that they lost 4-0 against QPR, so that bodes well.
So that's not a great platform, but ultimately I think Tomiyasu has probably, as that type of player, can come in and deliver to that standard. Of all the players, I think he would be able to slot in, having not played, having been injured, would be able to slot in and deliver at the standard that we'd need for the Etihad. That's how I see him in our squad. And, you know, there's lots of talk about him signing that. Yeah, signing that contract, basically.
Brentford at centre-half as well in that League Cup 1-0 win. I remember when we really held out against Brentford when we were winning 1-0. He was playing centre-half that game. So
you could slot him in there. I think that would put a lot of pressure on Saliba, but you would expect him to step up. We sort of have enough players that we can kind of make a bit of a sort of makeshift back four. But that would be an enormous loss to us, especially if Kevin De Bruyne is back, basically, which I assume he will be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping that, you know, he won't be. But the reality is that the amount of times we see Man City players or Spurs players or whoever, you know, face injury ahead of it, or Harry Kane, of course, with the Bayern Munich things, he's back in training now after missing the international break. Surprise, surprise. But Man City themselves do have a few question marks. You mentioned De Bruyne, you know, Kyle Walker is a doubt. There were suggestions today in Sky that it wasn't said to be too serious, but who knows? It could just be, you know, that's what they're feeding the media because they want Arsenal to think he's going to be fit. We'll have to wait and see. Manuel Akanji has pulled out today of Swiss international duty, so he's the obvious replacement, I think, for Walker when he's not fit to play right back. Of course, you got Rico Lewis, etc. But I think against Arsenal, I think Akanji actually played right back against Arsenal. We went to the Etihad last season, so there are question marks about who City may and may not have. They also, Umar, this season, I think City have shown some vulnerabilities, especially on the counter. We saw Chelsea go there, who have obviously been pretty disappointing this season, and get a good result twice. They've drawn against them twice, scored 6 goals, I think, in 2 games against City. They can be got at, and they do look to have their frailties, but is it just a simple case of underestimating them at your peril, or do you think there are things to exploit?
Yeah, of course. I think every team has weaknesses. They can be the best side in the world. They can be Real Madrid. They could be Manchester City. But obviously, there's going to be weaknesses, and Mikel Arteta will know that. And you saw this season, like Manchester City in certain games, you go back to that game against Wolves away from home. I think they lost that game. Chelsea, they do tend to concede a lot of chances, and more often than not, it's the other team not basically capitalizing on it. But I think with Arsenal, the ruthlessness is back. There's a bit of cutting edge. They seem to be scoring a lot of goals. They seem to be taking their chances. So I'm intrigued. I'm very, very intrigued to see what happens on Sunday, because I think Mikel Arteta, obviously, I think Arsenal will respect Manchester City, and they won't be a team that's going to go gung ho like, look, you're Manchester City, we're going to go at you. No, I think they're going to respect them. I think it could be a similar sort of tactical performance to the one reminiscent in the FA Cup a few years ago at Wembley when we beat them 2-0, I think it was. Because Arteta he's got the capabilities of doing it. Like, obviously, as Arsenal fans, we want to play attractive football. We want to see our team on the front foot. But in certain games, Arteta has to be a bit more pragmatic, especially in Europe as well. I think you saw in the first leg against Porto. I don't know whether it was because we were tired or fatigued, but there seemed to be a bit of, the approach wasn't to go attacking, to be fair, in that first leg against Porto. And I think when you, especially in Europe, and when you come up against the better teams away from home, you have to respect them. But that could be Arsenal soaking up the pressure and looking to hit them on the counter. And when you have players like Martinelli, Touchwood, who'll be fit for that, Bukayo Saka, Kai Havertz, we'll probably speak about him as well. Arsenal do have attacking threat, and Manchester City will be worried. So it wouldn't be surprising if Arteta goes for a reserve approach for this.
Yeah, and I was actually going to segues quite nicely to Dennis's comment here. He says, I want Arteta to make it the most boring game ever, like the Emirates one was. If we tried to make it interesting, they will batter us. Is that the way you want Arteta to approach this game, Laura? Do you want him to kind of play it tactfully? Do you want him to go into it where it was like the Emirates game, which, by the way, must have been one of the most nerve-wracking games I've ever been to the Emirates to watch, because it just felt like it was on a knife edge the entire... I don't know if my heart can take that for another game. And I don't know whether or not a game of that style would skew in Arsenal's favour at the Etihad either. So there's a lot of question marks there. Would you like to see Arsenal be, you know, that kind of dogged, tactical type of side, or would you like them to maybe be a little bit more explosive?
I think they're going to need to be a little bit more explosive than at the Emirates. I think as has been mentioned, City do have some vulnerabilities, and we need to be set up in a way to capitalise on them quickly. I think they have far too much, firepower up front for us to be sitting back and trying to eke out a 1-0 in the same way that we did. After Kevin De Bruyne and Haaland, you've got Phil Foden, who's having an amazing season. I think I'm right in saying when they came to the Emirates, Rodri didn't play. And that is, that's a huge addition.
He's never lost
them.
a game in something ridiculous, I think, when he plays. Yeah.
So that for me signals a slightly different approach. I think I'm right in saying as well that when we set up against them this season, we had Eddie Nketiah up top.
Yep. Jesus on the right, Trossard on the left.
When you think about how far we've come from that, with no disrespect to Eddie, but the trio of Rice, Jorginho, Odegaard, and then possibly Havertz instead, for me that represents an immense step forward in quality and in how we set up. So I don't think we're going to go out all guns blazing trying to crush them like we have done the previous couple of fixtures, but equally we can't sit back. I think they are far too good at breaking down teams. Even if it takes them 60, 70 minutes, it will happen. So we need to be fully prepared to essentially hit them on the break, and fingers crossed Martinelli's back. But that's where I think Jorginho is so key, because he is that sort of anchor position, but is also incredible at basically unlocking that sort of break if we can. So I will be perfectly happy if I am bored out of my mind for 90 minutes. I'll be perfectly happy if we get a lucky 1-0 like that Martinelli deflected shot. But I don't know if my heart's going to be able to take it. I'll be sitting there heart rate at 200 beats per minute, just praying that we can hold on. I think they'll be a bit more attacking than they were at the Emirates.
Yeah, they absolutely will. I mean, you look at the game between Liverpool and City. When you flip it to the Etihad, they were much more attacking than they were at Anfield. I mean, Liverpool looked like it was like inevitable that they'd eventually get the winner because they just kept coming and kept going against City, and they couldn't seemingly find their way out in that game. And I kind of hope that Arsenal ignore the environment of the Etihad and play it with a dominance and play with the idea of being on the ball.
Fair, like Tottenham, I don't want to say it, but
yeah,
Tottenham
no, you can say it. They have a very good record against them.
Yeah, and they never sit back. Like Laura makes a good point. Tottenham don't sit back in these certain games. So Arsenal, they've got the quality to hurt Manchester City. But again, it's going to be down to Mikel Arteta because in the back of his mind, he'll also be thinking that we can't lose this game if we want to progress in this title race. So I think there's going to be a cautious approach. But you go back to Tottenham at the Etihad, and they were going toe-to-toe with Manchester City, back and forth. Even if Manchester City went 2-1 up, Tottenham kept coming back and back and back. And like, no disrespect to Tottenham, but Arsenal have got far much better quality than them. So why can't Arsenal do the same? But I just think I look at Mikel Arteta, and he's got tendencies in big games to be a bit more cautious, and savvy. I could see it happening on Sunday again. Yeah, savvy. Yeah, you can see savvy.
415 days, 61 games is Rodri's record of being unbeaten.
We just need to get him sent off, basically.
Well, I think he was like something like he's a couple of yellow cards actually. I think away from missing 2 games for City. He does get a lot of bookings, but he rarely gets sent off unless he strangles someone, which obviously he did earlier this season. And I think they dropped points in those games following that suspension as well. So yeah, if there is one team that tend to be good at breaking omens and breaking records, though, it is Arsenal. You know, you think about Arteta's record of against Big Six sides. I don't think we've lost against a Big Six side this season. He obviously broke that horrible record that we had under Wenger and Emery of away games against Big Six teams. We won at Old Trafford for the first time since 2006, a couple of years ago. And we've been really good at revenge as well, like teams that we typically tend to lose against or grounds we've had troubles at. We've been very good at getting them back. And I think that there's one player in particular, Umar, who I expect to be our centre forwards as well, perhaps surprisingly so. If you'd have asked me at the start of the season who's going to be our centre forward come, the end of the transfer window, I'd have been like, well, Jesus is going to be the centre forward at City, this time around. But it's going to be Kai Havertz, who I think in these types of games, who has, a history of against Manchester City in the biggest game of their history prior to last season's Champions League final of doing the business. And how important do you think he'll be in this game?
Vital. Like, I can't tell you how important he is to this Arsenal team.
I hope you can.
Yeah. But it's funny how football changes. Like, honestly, a few months ago, he was the player that everyone was on the back of. Like, he's useless. He's a waste of money. And it shows, like, if you give a player time to settle, time to get used to his new surroundings, get used to the players, get used to the manager, you'll reap the rewards. Everyone knows prior to Chelsea, there was a player in Kai Havertz during his time at Leverkusen. He was a talented footballer. I think there was a whole host of teams that wanted to sign him before he went to Chelsea. Obviously, that move didn't work out like the way that he had probably hoped, but he still made, I think, a huge impact during his time at Chelsea. Probably not what Chelsea fans would have wanted for the amount of money that they paid, but like scoring in the Champions League final against Manchester City and helping them win that, like, in my eyes, it's worth however much you paid for him, to be honest. And you look at what he's doing now for the German national team. A few months ago, he was being picked at left back. Like, it's crazy. But now I look at him, and I think the biggest compliment I can give Havertz is once the season ends and the transfer window opens, I look in and around Europe in terms of who Arsenal could potentially sign as their number 9. No one gets me excited.
No one really?
No one. I'll be honest, no one gets me excited.
Osimhen, Gyökeres.
I've got to agree. I've got to agree. I don't think there is the player out there anymore in this transfer, in this upcoming summer, that is really exciting. Like, there's always been one each year where you think, oh, that'd be amazing. But
yeah.
To be fair, I'll happily hold my hands up and say I don't know the ins and outs of those, Gyökeres particularly. But you're right, Havertz is nestling quite nicely into that role.
Yeah.
I'd like, in my eyes, I'd rather Arsenal sign a wide forward that can chip in with a lot of goals. I think I look at Arsenal's wide forwards right now, Saka, Martinelli. When Martinelli doesn't play, Arsenal lack pace in the forward areas. I like Trossard. I don't think he's a left winger for me. I think at times he lacks that pace. When you talk about scoring goals, he's clinical. He's fantastic.
Yeah, get him in the box. He's probably our best finisher, to be honest.
Exactly. But I think Arsenal, they need pace this summer. Pedro Neto has been linked, but again, his injury record, I'm skeptical in terms of that. Nico Williams, and another rumored.
Simmons, please.
Yeah. There's options out there, but I look at Havertz right now, and I think he's doing such a remarkable job for Arsenal as the number 9. And what I like about him is he doesn't mind the dirty work. Like he doesn't mind the elbows into the face. He doesn't mind being a nuisance, and I think we've missed that for a long time. And now you see a bit of confidence coming into his game. When there's an opportunity for him to put the ball in the back of the net, he's taking it. And a few months ago, when there was a chance for him to score or hit the ball on target, he was finding the easy option. He was looking for the pass because he wasn't confident. Now you look at his finishing. He's like, give me the ball. I'll put the ball in the back of the net. So, yeah, right now, it's crazy. Like, but it's fantastic. And, like, kudos to everyone for supporting him. For the fans.
He'd be good. Kudos.
Yeah.
He'd be pretty good.
Exactly. But, yeah, I think he's going to have an important role to play for Arsenal in the final 10 games or so.
I think that he reflects, like, Arteta in some ways, his kind of dark arts as a manager. Some of the things that Arteta does, like visiting the Museum of Football Celebrations in Liverpool and then nicking Jurgen Klopp's fist pumping. I think, things like that, the way he's with officials and stuff as well. Havertz has got that Diego Costa edge in some ways to him. And I think that when Chelsea had and were winning trophies and titles with Costa as their main striker, a lot of Arsenal fans are very jealous of the fact that we didn't have a player that could, get others sent off and get others riled up and score goals and make a really important impact in games. I think Havertz absolutely adds that element to this team. The point about Martinelli is a good one, and both our wide players are too. Again, Laura, the other players that are question marks ahead of this. We beat, you pointed out earlier on, the lineup that we had at home, Nketiah, Jesus, Trossard was the front three that we beat City with. Obviously, Martinelli came off the bench and scored, and ironically could be in a position where if he's deemed fit enough for the bench, where that could be his role again in the same fixture, just at a different ground. How would you go about setting up if indeed Martinelli or Saka or both are somehow not fit to start?
I'm a bit torn with Martinelli because I do think he has this sort of little pattern where he goes away for a couple of games with an injury, and then we bring him on off the bench, and he is the best player. He's the best version of himself.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether, depending on how the game plays out at the Etihad, if it is the type of kind of stalemate game where we get to 60, 70 minutes where, it looks like it's potentially sliding towards a draw, or it's that sort of inevitable 70th, 80th minute that City finally break through, that's when I would bring Martinelli on. Fresh legs, he's fast. So I'm not sure what his level of fitness is at the moment, but I maybe wouldn't start him. I'd probably start Havertz up top, Saka. But what about Jesus? I don't know. You
can play him in a wide area as well.
Could play in a wide area. That could work. I think.
Has Trossard really gone off the boil for people that much when he starts left?
No.
Yeah.
I don't. He's not. But I think he is again one of those players that's better off the bench.
Yeah.
I think when he started in that position, I think he had a shocker against Porto until he scored. But even then, it didn't improve that much afterwards. And so, yeah, Havertz up top. I don't know. I'm sort of going. Martinelli off the bench. I'm saying it.
Yeah.
And then he'll come on, he'll score, and then I'll be vindicated for not starting him.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think that, off the bench, he can be a real impact player. I like Trossard in some of these big games. I know what everyone says, and like you've rightly pointed out, his impact from the bench is good. But as he showed against Porto, if you get him in the right place, he's deadly. And he'll finish goals. He'll finish those opportunities. And we may not get loads of opportunities at the Etihad. And so if you can get Trossard in that position,
I do think the Porto one with Trossard as well, he was having a stinker, but he still scored. And I think, as you said, that Man City game could be the same where we don't control it. We were chasing the ball quite a lot with Porto, but he still came up with the goods. So, I've not written him off as much as, what I see on Twitter, basically.
Let's talk about the game in terms of what it means in any of the three scenarios that we could find ourselves in. The title of the video is the Premier League title decider ? Is this, Umar, a case of Arsenal have to win, Arsenal cannot lose, or if we do lose, it's still not over because of having that initial lead over City going into this?
Look, if Arsenal lose, as Arsenal fans, we're always going to have that hope that we can go on to win the Premier League title. But I look at our fixture schedule in April, and it's demanding, to be honest. Like, I think the next month is going to decide if Arsenal win the Premier League title and how far they're going in the Champions League. So this next month is massive for this football club. But I think for me, it's a must not lose game at the Etihad. Because I know I'm optimistic, I know I've got self-belief and I've got confidence, but I've learned lessons after last season. So as a fan, I'm talking like I'm going to be playing. But I've learned.
I watch these games like I am sometimes, to be fair.
So I've learned lessons as a fan, and I know if we were to lose at the Etihad, it will be an uphill task for Arsenal to win the league, because you've got Liverpool as well. They're right up there in terms of trying to win this Premier League title. So you're not only competing against Manchester City, who we all know can go on a ridiculous run, 10 games, 9 games winning streak, and they can wipe the floor and win the league. But you're also competing with the Klopp fairy tale tour, all that lovey-dovey stuff. So look, I think but I think for Arsenal, it's a must not lose game. I would take a draw right now. I would take a draw. Like,
really, if I offered you a draw, you'd take it?
Yeah.
Laura, would you?
Yeah.
The internal conflict that was going on there.
Yeah, I probably would.
Oh, I'm going to put a poll in the chat box. Okay.
Oh, they're going to go crazy.
I'll put a poll in the chat.
I think if Arsenal win, say for example, if Arsenal win, I think Arsenal go on to win the Premier League title. That's how big it is.
I agree with you. I think if we win,
look, I think we go on to win.
If we win and don't win the league, it would look like it would then look like a bit of I think it would look more of a bottle job than last season. That might seem really harsh, but I think it would look more, because you've beaten City twice, you've not lost to Liverpool, you've beaten Liverpool in one of those 2 games, and still not won it. So you've lost points in games that you definitely shouldn't have.
I'd agree, especially if we drop points at like Wolves or Spurs or whoever else we've got, Brighton. Like, how you beaten City and not losing to Liverpool over those fixtures and not winning the title. That's the nightmare scenario for me. That is a nightmare scenario.
Winning against City and then not winning the league. Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny, isn't it? Because like, if you beat City, you ironically dial up the pressure to 11, because then it's all on you.
It's almost easier if we don't win on Sunday.
If we draw,
if we draw on Sunday, or even if we have a narrow loss but play well, you still hold on to the hope that they will drop points, even though their fixture list is less than us. We are then, people will probably write us off if we don't win if we lose on Sunday. We just go about our business, and we're not got that fear of dropping points of every game we go into, which I think is what we're about to experience, that it's 3 points or bust in each game. So in a way, it relieves the pressure a little bit if we don't win, but then we're just in that awful scenario. We've got to pray that
Mhm.
one of these other teams does us a favour, and I just can't see that happening.
Yeah, like last season, I asked myself the question, would I take a draw? And I said no, because I thought we could win it. And I think I was really naive, and I was proven to be really naive. And so if I was offered it this time, I think I'd take it based upon last season and what happened. Because it's still I think obviously it would, I think, goes into Liverpool's hands if they beat Brighton and we draw at City. But that Liverpool team, I just see them dropping points.
Yeah.
Like I can just see that there's something about. I know that they keep somehow doing it. Like the Forest game was a joke. Like
we were doing that last season, though. TC.
Yeah, we were
doing
the
that last
Bournemouth
season.
game, and even this season to a degree. You think about the Luton game away from home. You think about the Manchester United game. You know, we have done it ourselves at times. But yeah, it is. And all three outcomes. I think what's really good is that when Liverpool drew with City, that was the perfect result for us because of what a draw now means for us at City. And I think that because Liverpool didn't win or City didn't win and went into that game ahead of us in the league, and that we're going into this game top of the table, that a draw is seen as a very good result still for Arsenal in this game. Whereas for City, it is a must win, I think, from their perspective. Because no one now plays each other, you know, after this weekend. Yeah. Everyone's just got their own fixtures, their own games. Only can we play City in the Champions League if we reach, you know, the semi-finals, which in itself would be an amazing achievement, I think, for this season to reach the semi-finals of the Champions League. So, yeah, and they'd have to beat Real Madrid themselves, which is also not exactly easy. Plus, you've got Liverpool and City still... not Liverpool, but you still got City in the FA Cup as well. Liverpool's still in the Europa League as well and expected to go far in that competition. They're pretty much, it's theirs to lose, I think, that competition this season too. So you'd expect them to continue playing more games, City with the extra addition of the FA Cup too. I'm going to finish with the meanest of questions. And you know what's coming. I would like your prediction, please, Umar. If you want to caveat it with assuming that Saka and Martinelli and Gabriel are available, I'll allow that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So, for those three players, I think Arsenal will win on Sunday. Call me mad.
No,
I'm overconfident.
Last season I would have called you mad.
I've just got a feeling. I've just got a sneaky feeling. I've got a sneaky feeling that we're going to win 2-1.
Okay. Is it a case of winning it late, or are we 2-0 up and then they score and we have to hold on? How are you seeing that?
No. I've exactly what you just said.
The 2-0 up and then holding on.
No. Reminiscent of Chelsea a few years ago when they went to the Etihad.
Yeah.
I think it was 1-1 and Eden Hazard streaks away to make it 2-1. I can see something similar happening.
That'd be, for the emotions, that's the best way to win it. Like,
I don't know about emotions. I don't
imagine
know.
being 2-0 up.
I'll be dead by then. I'll be on the floor. Passed away.
At that point.
Yeah.
Oh, Laura.
Oh, I mean, over the course of this 43 minutes, I have come full circle. So, Umar, you almost convinced me. You almost convinced me to be positive. I'm going to go 1-1 draw. I think we're going to hang on in there for a 1-1 draw, and I hope it's the most boring game ever. But we managed to basically come away with a point, because that will fill me with a bit more confidence for the rest of the season.
Indeed. Interesting that, Nicholas points out here, if Ortega is in goal, there's a potential for Ederson not to be fit. He obviously missed out on that Brazilian side as well. So, there's scope that we might not see a number of players on either side. There's so many question marks. It's like for both managers, it's almost impossible to kind of plan for what lineup the other team might do. And I think Arteta will probably go into this game very much focused on us rather than focused on them and what our game plan is. You know, I'm going to say we're going to win because I'm forever the optimist, literally the anti-Laura at this point. But,
I'm just here for balance, Tom. Like, you've got to have one of me at least. Otherwise, we're all just gassing each other up.
Of course. No. And looking at the chat, just to get an insight, we've had over 100 of you voting. The numbers are still going up, but it's 60-40 in favour of no in terms of not taking the draw if you were offered it. But that's pretty split. Most of the polls we do lean very heavily one way or the other usually. So that's a pretty close split. Let us know in the comment section if you're listening on Catch Up whether you would take that offer if it was given to you right now. But that brings us very nicely to the end of today's show. While we're rounding out, I'll throw up some of your predictions in the chat box. But Umar, thank you so much, mate, for your time. Tell people they can find you and what you're going to be up to.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, but I don't really use it this season. I
You
was
actually
planning to
can't
use
find him on Twitter either because I don't know what it is. I know you've had this for a long time, and I had it again. I realized when I was typing out the tweet for the show, when you try and type in Umar's like it just doesn't come up. Even when you type it out in full, a different account comes up that's not you. You have for someone who runs like social accounts, you're the least findable person on Twitter.
It's true. It's true. But now to be fair, you can find me on TNT Sports YouTube channel after Arsenal in the Champions League. I'll probably be doing something, the highlights or something like that.
He's just going to take it over and just selfie video something if we win it. Yeah. It is at Wembley. So, there's a lot of scope for plenty of people to be there that day. I say that, because of corporate, Arsenal will get about 15 tickets. But other than that, it'll be fine. Laura, thank you so much as well for your time. Always a pleasure to chat. Tell people they can find you and what you're going to be up to.
You can find me on Twitter. I'll probably be live tweeting my mental breakdown ahead of kickoff on Sunday. I feel England is playing tonight. I feel a bit safe tonight, but from Wednesday onwards, I think the vibes are going to deteriorate somewhat. So if you want to see someone having a severe breakdown ahead of kickoff, come and join me.
You should do a watch along, Laura. You did it for Arsenal. I think you should do a watch along for this.
It'll be me on the floor. Just sometimes I watch it with the sound off because that makes it somewhat better. Yeah, I'm a coward, so a watch along would be me hiding behind my sofa.
One of the worst things about covering games, like when I'm doing like the minute by minute blogs, especially in away games, is like because I've got my head looking at the laptop so much when I'm typing. Often I'm going off the crowd noise whether I look up, and so when you're at away games, when you hear the crowd noise, it's a bad sign. Because obviously the opposition of the team that are most likely on attack, it's horrible. Thankfully, this season there's not been too many moments where that's been the case. But yeah, that really does raise the.
When we used to film, so when we used to do Gooner Box, we had to do it without sound because obviously Arsenal don't have the rights to the Sky commentary.
Of course,
it's a very strange sensation watching a game in silence because. You have no idea if a goal has been scored, if it's a difficult angle. So I might treat myself to that at the weekend because it makes it slightly less painful with whoever it is on Sky Sports on the commentary going crazy with all their ridiculous narratives. So that'll be me at the weekend, I think.
Fair enough. Have you done? I've not been across it. Have you done part 2 of your critique series yet?
I have, yes.
Yeah, is it out?
It's out. Yeah, if you want to read about
after this.
The Joe Barton's podcast, I did listen to all 3 hours of one of the episodes and I've written a little minute by minute, but that descended into half an hour by half an hour.
It is great. If you've not read the first, obviously now I've read the first one and it was hilarious. So yes, it's basically Laura listening to a podcast so you don't have to, and rounding it up in the most brilliant of ways. So go and check that one out. It's very good indeed. It's very in tune with obviously a show I did last night as well. If people haven't gone back and listened to yesterday evening's phone-in show, it was a very insightful one, talking about the women's game again, and some of the comments that we've been getting on the channel recently, of which Laura joined me for another show actually about that a couple of weeks ago about it as well. So plenty to sink your teeth into. Thank you so much everybody for listening. Appreciate your time as always. Do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning as always, bright and early at 8 a.m. as we continue to build up and the blood pressure in Laura in particular rises all the way through to Sunday. Thank you again to Umar and Laura for being fantastic, and we will see you on the next one. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful, and as always, up the Arsenal.